Smile.
But I'm not happy.
People
Why are you
staring.
I don't want to do this.
You have to. They'll know
No one
something's
cares about
wrong.
your
Why
life.
is that bad?
Nobody cares. They won't understand.
Nobody
I want to
cares.
go home. You'll hurt their feelings.
This is ridiculous.
What are we even talking about?
Just
You want
keep
to keep
them
them
happy.
happy.
What if they
They're
think
gonna
you're
be mean.
stupid?
Just keep them happy. Just keep them happy.
Just lie.
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, here me and you, let's keep it real honest.
Hi, did you guys miss me? Welcome back, or welcome for the first time, but I'm welcoming myself back to Real Honest, the podcast where I share candid thoughts and feelings about life, love, and relationships, God and church, adulting, the workplace, and everything in between. I am your host. My name is Samantha, and you probably won't always like me, but I will always be honest with you. I like to start each episode with a goals check-in because I am super achievement-oriented and a perfectionist. And also, originally, I thought that me checking in on my goals every week was going to force me to improve upon them better so that I wouldn't be saying the same thing to you guys every week. That backfired. But also, I lead a small group with my church. We meet on Zoom on Saturday mornings. That's how I've met like most of my friends at this point in my life. And my small group has done like a bunch of little offshoot groups. Like we now have a book club and we have a movie club. And this year we added a goals club where we're going to check in every month with each other to help keep each other accountable and to make sure there are regular check-ins for people to have intentional time to sit down and say, what is it that I am pursuing? What do I want to be pursuing? What am I prioritizing? And how can I kind of move these things around? So we had our first session on the 31st, like leading into the new year. And a lot of the group found it really difficult. Like they had never really sat down and tried to write everything out like that before. A lot of people were like, how many goals am I supposed to have? Like, can I have 300 goals? Do I need to pick 3? Do I need to pick 1? And just kind of where do we even begin? So I didn't even realize that this was something that like not a lot of people, or at least not a lot of people in my life did. And that it's something that I can teach other people. And I think that it starts with reflecting. So I don't own this quote. I think it's, oh my gosh, what is the guy's name? John Mark Comer, I think it is. The guy who's over practicing the way. I'm doing that study right now. It's a study on how to learn how to become more like Jesus. But he has a quote in his program study book where he says like something to the effect, this is not the exact quote, so it's something to the effect of the work itself is not what produces growth. It's reflecting on the work that produces growth. So if you think about any project, you know, like if you are working out, if you're changing your diet, if you're working, volunteering, whatever it is, you're working on something yourself or with a team, and, you know, you put a plan into action, you guys do the thing. And then if you just do the thing again or do a different thing, but you never sit down and reflect on how did that go? Like, how was the process of doing the thing? How were the people that were a part of it? How were the tasks assigned to each person? How was the timeline, the order of events? If you never sit and review all of that so that you can improve the plan the next time, then you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over. So personally, I reflect every month. I spend like the last 2 weeks of the year focusing on the major things that I want to work on in the upcoming year. And then I like set those. And then once the new year begins, at the end of every month, I sit down and I journal and I reflect on like, how are those going? Do I want to remove any of these, change any of them, add anything? And then I do that every single month. And then I do like a longer, like probably every 6 months, I take like a whole weekend to reflect on all of the different areas of my life and where I see improvement and where I don't, and just try to figure out what I can do to get myself closer to where I want to be. So last year, the main goals that I decided to focus on were finishing the first draft of the first book in the series that I'm writing, editing the first draft of the second book of the same series, paying off all credit card debt, and getting a B- or higher in all of my seminary courses. The last one is the only one that I accomplished. I did get an A in all my classes, but I did nothing else on that list of goals. But when you sit down and you do the reflection part, it's really, really important to not beat yourself up and to understand that the purpose of reflecting is not to focus on where you failed. It's to focus on the lessons that you learned along the way and ask yourself, like, I wouldn't even say, why did I fail? I would more ask myself, like, if this is what I chose to focus on, I had these, 4 things, and I accomplished one of them. Did that one take more time than I thought? Or, like, why did these other things get put on the back burner? Or what else was going in my life that caused them to not happen? So I start with celebrating my wins. Like, I did get 7 or 8 chapters of my book written. So I didn't finish the book, but I did write some. I did not edit my second book at all because I decided to focus on book 1 and just wait until that's complete. And I thought that I was going to finish it in the first 6 months of the year and then I would have the second half to edit them both. But clearly that was too ambitious. I did pay debt down. I didn't pay it off, but that was still progress. I more than achieved my goal in seminary, which I really expected myself to do. So that wasn't even a real goal. That was more of something that I knew I was going to do. But something I find interesting is that they did tell me, the admissions team, when I was applying to seminary, they said that, like, they don't expect students to have straight A's. And they said, if you have straight A's, we're going to assume that you are majorly neglecting some other area of your life, like whether it's your family, your mental health, your physical health. Like, no one can be 100% in every area, and we want our students to learn how to be well-rounded and learn that, like, maybe you can give 100% to being a mom today. Like, I fully won there, but I didn't win at school. And then maybe the next week you're winning as a wife and not winning as a mom and not winning as a student. And maybe the following week you're winning as a student or whatever. I also think that most church and religious things are focused on families. So, like, I don't think that when they were giving that little spiel, I was kind of like, this doesn't apply to me because I don't have a child or a husband or even a pet or a plant or anything else that I have to keep alive. Like, I am working full time, which most other students are not, but I work from home and have a super flexible job. So that just never seemed like something that was going to be hard for me to do, and it wasn't. What was hard is being a perfectionist is the thing, like, that's the thing that I learned in 2024. Being a perfectionist is the bane of my existence. It is the number one cause of stress and anxiety in my life. So I spent more time last year learning about that and how it works and what I can do about it. I feel like a lot of people think that perfectionism means I want to be perfect, which in a sense it can. But a lot of people assume that it is, I'll give you guys an example. I used to be in a writing group. We would meet at the library every Tuesday night to work on our books. And there were a lot of people in that group who, whenever they would read some of my pages, they would be like, oh my gosh, this is ready to go. Like, why haven't you sent this out? Why isn't it published? Like, go publish this. What's wrong with you? And I was like, dude, my book is 200 pages in Word docs long. Like, you've only read 5. You have no idea if the whole book is like that. And he's like, yeah, but I know you. And so I assume the whole book is like this. Like, why? It's not sent out because you're a perfectionist and you're just going to edit it and edit it and edit it until it's perfect. And it's never going to be perfect. So it's never going to be done. And that wasn't totally true. That's not totally accurate. What I have found about being a perfectionist that's more accurate is that we believe that we can achieve significantly more than we actually can. It's like, because I edit as I write and my work is typo free and it makes sense and I write my book in order and I also type very quickly, like, because I have all of those skills to make the first draft very clean and very polished, I feel like I should be able to complete a first draft faster than somebody who would have to go back and fix typos and edit sentence structure and those kinds of things. So that's why I had this really ambitious goal of, like, I'm going to write an entire book and edit an entire book that I've already written all together in 1 year. Because if I even went to this like writer's course, and we did these like timed typing tests and things. And I found that like I can complete 100,000 word book in like 30 days if I write for an hour a day. And I was like, okay, well, that's nothing. Like I can easily write for 10 minutes a day and make it take a little longer, but finish. But I don't have time to write for an hour a day. I don't even have time to write for an hour a week. So it was never realistic to begin with. And it's the same kind of thing where like when I am at work, I overpack my schedule and I overpack my to-do list. People ask me to do things and I'm like, oh yeah, that'll take 10 seconds to do, not worried about it. But then I have agreed to do so many things that it takes me longer to do because I'm in the middle of doing something and then I get asked to do something else. And so then I pause to add that to my list, and it's just going and going and going. And then I'm confused why nothing's ever getting done. So the thing that stops me from working on my book is that if I schedule an hour to work on my book, and then when I sit down for that hour, if I'm not in the mood or if I can't think of anything, or if I don't have an outline planned, like if in that hour I end up only actually writing for 5 or 10 minutes and then I don't get the words that I expected to get because I had planned to write for the whole hour, then I get so angry with myself and I hate myself, and it's like, you're just a failure and you can't do anything right. Don't even bother. Don't even write this book. And then I'm like so mad at myself for failing at spending an hour working on it that I don't try again for like 6 months. And then on top of that, I always deprioritize myself. Like I prioritize anything that anyone else needs or wants me to do over things that I need and want to do for myself. So example, like the way that I organize my work day, because I am a project manager, and like usually if somebody on my team doesn't have access to a file, like they can't write the article they're writing until they get access to the file that has some information for them. And I'm in charge of unblocking that and making sure that they get access to the file. So it's the kind of thing where like if someone pings me and says like, hey, I don't have access to this file, it might be a file that I have access to that I can easily share with them. It might be something that I have to message 10 different people and track down the owner to get them to share it with them. So it could take 15, 30 minutes. You never know. But if I am editing an article that somebody else on my team wrote, that when I'm done editing it, I'm going to just send it to the client, the person with the access issue is like stalled and waiting on me so they can continue. So I pause what I'm doing to figure out their issue so that they can continue. And then my thing is the thing that gets pushed. But I don't ever miss deadlines. So like I will stay up till 2 a.m. editing the previous thing before I will turn it in late. But I also could complete my task and then do the other person's thing, and it would just take them longer to finish what they needed to do because they had to wait for me, and I don't like people waiting for me. So like there's that at work, and then I pretty much have the same job at my church that I do at my like actual job. Like I'm a project manager. I feel like in all aspects of life I have to project manage everybody all the time. I feel like I'm all my friends' therapists, and it's just like there are too many things to where I'm like, I'm not going to sit and write my book because somebody's calling me or emailing me like this person needs something, that person needs something. And I like being a person that is reliable and that people can count on to get things done and get them done quickly and get them done well. But at the same time, I feel like I don't have anyone in my life who is doing that for me. And I just really, really desperately want someone to be like, what is it that you need? And so I was so busy doing everything for everyone in all aspects of my life that I got sick. And then because I was sick for 10 days, I fell off I had gotten 10,000 steps every day for 90 days. And I was so proud of that. And I was doing really awesome on my workout plan. And then because I was sick, I couldn't work out. And then it took me like 3 weeks. I had the flu for 10 full days. And then after the flu went away, because I have asthma, I had like a residual illness where like I wasn't fully recovered, like breathing wise, for the next like 3 weeks. And so I ended up taking like a month and a half off of exercising. And then I was so mad that I had to do that I just gave up for the year. It was like, screw it, I'm done. And that was really stressful. But so I was like talking to my therapist about all this, and it was essentially like, I didn't even realize like how out of energy I was until I like went to a session one day and I was just so tired and I just cried my whole session because it had been building for like 2 months and I didn't notice. And so that's when I was really like, okay, I need to figure out who do I actually want to give my time and energy to, because I cannot keep giving it to everyone. But even in the process of my therapist and I working on figuring out like what I was going to pull back on and where I was going to like scale up and scale down, the first thing to go was all my personal stuff, right? So like I stopped doing this podcast. I stopped trying to work on my book at all. Like anything that was for me, I still like, because those are the things I can give away the easiest. And I had to give those things away to make time to figure out like, okay, I'm going to pull back on the hours that I volunteer at church. I'm going to pull back on the way that I organize things at work. I also decided to quit seminary, which is that's not because the work was too hard or anything like that. It's a completely separate issue that maybe I'll talk about later if I feel like it's relevant. But there were a bunch of things where I was just sitting and evaluating, like, where is my time actually going? And it's not going where I want it to. So how can I pull back on the places where my time is going that I don't want it to, so that I can give my time to the places that I do want it to go to? So if you are brand new to setting goals, or if you're a person that like doesn't care about having like a target that you're trying to hit, but you just want to become more productive, I recommend starting with just auditing your time. Like just take a week where you track what you're doing in a day in terms of like how many hours are you, even if you work in an office, like you have a 9 to 5 thing where you're like technically supposed to be working for 8 hours a day, but how much of that time are you like scrolling on social media or talking to the person at the cube next to you or hanging out in the break room? Like just take an audit of like from the time that you wake up to the time that you go to sleep. Like how much time are you watching TV? How much time are you on the phone with somebody? And so figure out where all of that time is going, so that when you decide that there's something that you need to do and you feel like I don't have time for that, the correct answer is you do have the ability to make time for it. So it's more like, what am I currently spending time on that I can replace with this thing that I really want to do or I really want to work on? And then from there, on the question of like, how many goals should I set? Like, how many things should I be working on? I think the answer to that lies in how much time do you have to reflect? If you need a full 8-hour day every weekend to evaluate how the week went and prep for the week upcoming, and you don't have a full 8-hour day every weekend to do that, then you probably have too many things you're trying to achieve. And then it also depends on, do you need to achieve the goals in order to see them as successful? And if so, then what is the highest number of things you can reasonably find success in? So for example, like a lot of people set fitness goals, right? Like maybe your goal for the year is that you want to lose 20 pounds. And then you're asking like, okay, how am I going to lose 20 pounds? I'm going to create a workout schedule. I'm going to make sure that I exercise 5 days a week. I'm going to drink X amount of water every day. I'm going to follow a certain diet or nutrition plan. Maybe I'm going to work with a personal trainer. Like you can have all of these sub goals that are supporting a bigger goal. But if you do that, are you someone who can work out 3 times this week instead of 5 and be like, all right, that was this week, trying for 5 again next week? Or are you someone who's going to say, I didn't follow the diet today, so like I failed, like I have to do all of the things in order to be successful? And I think like what my therapist is working with me on right now is like, can I do 70% of the things? Can I do 50% of the things and still feel okay? Like if my goal is to get 10,000 steps a day, like that can be my daily goal. Like I wake up every day with the goal of getting 10,000 steps a day, but I also wake up every day with the understanding that this might be a day that I don't get 10,000 steps. And if I don't, that's not the end of the world, because there's something else that I did do today. And it's just making sure that when I'm going to sleep every night, I'm focusing on the things that I did accomplish as opposed to the things that I didn't. segueing into what I'm learning from God right now, it's how to do less. I'm currently working through Practicing the Way, which is a study you can find online for free to learn how to practice the way of Jesus. It's learning how to become like him, be more like him. And that's my main goal of the year, is just becoming as much like Jesus as I can possibly be, and to really get to know him, because I have just found that when I am actively pursuing that lifestyle, it makes me happier. And one of the things that I love the most is that Jesus was doing less. Like, Jesus was not about this like always online, always on culture. Like, he was about hanging out with his friends and like moving slowly, like walking places, not running, was like never rushing or in a hurry. And I just really want to like slow down and calm down this year. I've been working on this. It's the end of January, so I've been working on this for almost a month now. And I have found that the days that I do not start my workday, like I don't look at any emails or Slack messages until I have done my like morning prayer time, journaling and or reading, and eaten breakfast and hydrated properly and exercised. If all of those things are done, then no matter what happens in the workday, I handle it fine. And I'm not getting super anxious. I'm not getting overly upset with anyone. I'm always going to get upset with people. I'm a project manager. So really and truly, it's just a stressful job. But I have found that really, really helps me. And the only thing that it has changed at work is that I start my workday later, because I'm just not a person who can get up at 5 a.m. I understand that I work from home and I create my own schedule, so I have the flexibility to do this, and a lot of people don't. So again, if you're a person that like has to be in an office and you're wanting to have some type of morning routine, you probably have to wake up earlier in order to make that work. But that's a huge, huge thing that I have noticed, is that most of my life, the first thing I've done when I wake up is check my work emails and Slack messages, and I see so many of them coming in and people needing things that I go straight to my office and start working. And then most days I don't eat until 2 p.m. because that's the first time that I'm getting like a break, or that I notice that I'm really hungry because I haven't eaten all day. And so now I just start my day a little bit later to make sure that I prioritize my personal wellness in the morning. And it hasn't really made a big impact at work. The only thing I've noticed is that I do have a lot of people at work going to a team member of mine because she's more available than me. So that's been annoying, that I have to keep reminding them that like, you go to me, you don't go to her. And if it takes me 2 hours longer to respond to you than it used to, that's still not the end of the world. Like, you're still getting the answer today. The work is still being done. It's still being done quickly. It's being done well. It's being done right. I'm just starting my day a little later than I used to. And like, you people need to learn how to adapt. And I guess that sort of makes why I quit seminary relevant. I only want to mention that on here so that I won't have a million people texting me about it, because I'm like tired of telling this story. But so the main reason that I went to seminary in the first place is that I wanted to learn more about the Bible. I wanted to understand, what are pastors being taught that is in the Bible? Like, are they out here being taught to hate the gays and be bigots and racists, or like, are they just out here doing that on their own? Like, does the Bible say that somewhere and I've just missed it? And there are millions of free Bible resources out there. There are all kinds of resources and studies and whatever. So many people were like, why would you go to seminary for that? And I was like, I have tried the Bible Project and She Breeds Truth. Like, I have tried free stuff, paid stuff, like so many different Bible study resources, and none of them have really worked for me. Like, usually I start them and then I don't finish them because that's not a priority, because there are so many other things going on in life that I actually have to do. Someone suggested that I audit classes at the seminary, and the thing about auditing is that you are an observer. You don't have to do any of the work. You don't write the papers, you don't take the tests. And I was like, that to me is the same as going to the Bible Project website and taking one of their free courses. Like, if I don't have to do the work, then I'm probably not going to show up to class most days. And so that's why I enrolled in a degree program, because I am a perfectionist, and I knew that if I was paying for the course and I was assigned readings and coursework and papers and tests, that I was going to complete them, and I was going to complete them well. And I did. I got straight A's. I'm very proud of that. But I did not learn a whole lot about the Bible. Granted, I've been going to school part-time and I've only been in it a year and a half. So all of the classes that I've taken, like a regular full-time student would have taken in the first semester. So part of it is that I've just been taking a lighter course load. But part of it is that a lot of seminary, or I would say graduate school in general, a lot of graduate school is a lot of speculation. It's a lot of high level thinking, which I do enjoy. But for an example for you from seminary, like in one of my classes, we had to write a paper we had to choose a vocation, which I chose project management because that's what I do. And we had to write like a 10-page paper taking the vocation through the biblical narrative. So the biblical narrative, for those who don't know, is split into like 4 sections, which is creation. That's God creating the earth. And it's a story about how God created the earth in 7 days. And then there's the fall, which is when Adam and Eve ate the apple and introduced sin into the world and were rejected from the Garden of Eden. And then there is redemption, which is when Jesus came to die for our sins. And then there is restoration, which is when the Jesus returns and restores the world, which has not happened yet. So the paper was take this vocation, which for me it was project management. Okay, take project management through these and explain to us, did project management exist during creation? What were the effects of the fall on project management? How is project management today in our world that we're living in? And then how do you think it will be in the new world, which we understand as speculation because we're not there yet? And it's one of those things where I've told so many people about this, and like the average response I've gotten is like, that's ridiculous. Like jobs didn't exist before the fall. Like we're living in a fallen world. I mean, people that believe. I haven't had this conversation with non-believers because there's no point, because they're like, all of that is untrue. So what difference does it make? But for people that do believe, there's just been a lot of like, that's so stupid. Like what a waste of time, because the average person is not sitting and thinking through this, where I know what my professors were getting at. I wrote the paper. My paper was great, but it's one of those things where I was saying like, well, God is the original project manager, right? God had a project. His project was creating the earth, creating people, creating, so it's like he created animals, and then he's like, I'm going to delegate someone to rule over the animals. I'm going to make Adam and Eve, right? And then it's like, what are the effects of the fall? Well, now project management isn't about creating life, but everything needs a project, right? Like if you're going to build something, you need a project manager. I could argue that parents are project managers because they're creating plans to raise children and stuff like that. So it's not like, I don't think that it's totally ridiculous, but I am the type of person that when I received this assignment, I was just like, I don't care if project management existed before the fall. I don't care what the effects of sin have on project management. I can tell you about project management in the world today, but I don't care if it's going to exist in the future. Like all that matters to me is what's happening day to day right now. And that is that I have a job where I am a project manager, and that's what I have to do to get paid to keep living. So I'm just like, that is what made it feel like a waste of time to me, because I wasn't studying or learning anything about the Bible through writing that paper. Like it was more, of course, like you have to engage with scripture to be able to, like, you have to know what those 4 different parts of the narrative are. You have to know what they are. You have to know the scriptures to reference and how to explain them. But that still is not like the content that I want to learn. So that was the main thing, there was just too much like super high level speculation. There are so many debates of like, theologians believe that this story is about this, and other ones believe it's about this, and the Hebrew word is this, but the Greek word is this, and it could mean this, but it could mean that. And I am just like, okay, so, but what does it actually mean? Like, why is it so hard to read? And so that was the other thing, is that taking courses at seminary were making me really angry with God, because I feel like the Bible and just the whole concept of God is so it's the simplest thing in the world and simultaneously the most complex thing in the world. And it was really, really frustrating me to learn that like so many scholars are still having like heated debates over things. And it's like every book that you read in seminary is too many pages and it's too dense. And it's just some man saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, but in 18,000 different ways because he's trying to be really clear. And I am like, this whole book could have been 4 sentences. That really frustrated me. But even more than all of that, I'm leaving seminary because I live in St. Louis, Missouri, which is a very segregated town. And there's just, I grew up being the only Black kid in all my classes all the time. So I'm used to it. I knew that going back to school, I was going to be back in that environment, but I did not realize how freeing being out of that environment has been. I have quit jobs because I was the only Black person there. And I currently work at a company where the majority of the people I have day-to-day conversations with are in India, Japan, and Portugal. So I just love the diversity of faces that I see when I'm in meetings every day. And that has been really important to me and really freeing. And so it's not only that there are so few Black people at this particular seminary, but also so few women, so few single people. And I feel like I am a quadruple minority. I am a minority in every way, being Black, being single, being a woman, living alone, not having children, not wanting children, living off campus, working full time. Everything is against me. And the seminary, it's just too small. It's not designed for people like me. And then with being the mega minority in all of my classes, it's the other students are just so young and don't have any life experience, and it just does not even occur to them. And so in every single one of my classes, there has come a point where I have said something about being a minority and how uncomfortable it is. And some white boy comes up to me every time and is like, I'm so sorry that you're having this experience, and I'm so sorry that I may have done or said something to contribute to it, and I just want to help, and it's then the white boy is crying, and then I have to console him and be like, it's not your fault that there's only white people here. Oh my gosh, it just was so awkward and uncomfortable. And what I did, I told them in my exit interview, and also I've told other students this, anyone who will listen, I tell. So anyone out there listening, I'll tell you too. The thing that I would love to see is somebody else notice, because I think that's what bothers me the most, is that all of the other students, it doesn't even occur to them that there's 1 or 2 people of color in the room. And I am I'm tired of having to bring that to their attention. I want one of these white boys to go to the provost or president of the school, whatever they call it, and say, what's your strategy for diversifying this campus? Because clearly it's not working. But they don't do that because they truly don't notice. It doesn't even occur to them. And I even, I did have... There are only 2 or 3 professors of color, and I did have one of them last semester. So that was wonderful because I was able to go to his office hours and talk about the experience that I was having, and he completely understands my decision to leave, and he gave me a list of schools that he think would be better fits if I ever move out of the area, which I thought was so kind. But one of the really distressing things that he said to me is that he had held a meeting with faculty at one point last semester to say, our students of color are leaving. We need to do something about this because they're not comfortable here. And one of the white professors in the room said, oh, we've made great strides. There are so many of them. And he's just but he's not being rude. He actually thinks that. And that's a problem. How do we fix that? And I was just at this point in my life, what I have learned is that when presented with the opportunity of being the minority, my answer is no. I don't want to do it anymore. I'll do it if I have to, obviously. I don't have a choice in my neighborhood. I don't have a choice when I go to the grocery store, when I go to a restaurant. It's just the world that I live in. But I do have a choice whether or not to go to this school. I do have a choice to accept jobs or not, or to stay in jobs or not. And I'm just at a place where I am you know what? I choose diversity. That's why I picked my church. that's actually, it's not why I picked my job. It was a happy accident when I landed with the client that I have right now. But that's just something that I'm like, I don't want to deal with that anymore. But through that whole journey, I think I also learned that I really want to have the discipline to like study the Bible on my own. And since I've decided to quit seminary, I do have one semester left, which starts next week. And I am auditing a class, which I thought would be stupid, but here we are. But yeah, I've learned that even trying to study the Bible in a certain way can be detrimental to learning about it. Like there's something that's really interesting in an academic setting where like everyone is trying to learn the Bible really well, is that learning the Bible becomes more important than actually having a relationship with God, which I think that in order to have a relationship with God, you need to study the Bible. So I'm not trying to tell anyone to not do that. But I think that the scholarly avenue of like the tests and the papers about the Bible, it becomes more about being able to quote scripture for the sake of quoting scripture so that you can recall it for an oral exam, or being able to memorize certain maps because that's on a test. But it's just like, what is that? Is that information actually telling you anything about God? Like if your point is to get to know God, I don't know how much that's helping you. And also, as you all know, I have zero desire to be a pastor or a teacher or to work in full-time ministry. And therefore, I do not need the master's degree that I was getting. So I'm gonna dip out and do something else with my time and my money. And I'm going to use that to segue into today's topic, which is loss is the companion of progress, not the opposite. This is also not an original quote. I stole this from my pastor, Stephen Furtick, but I think that it is important and formative for people to know. You know, it's the kind of thing where I do feel like I failed in a sense because I enrolled in a degree program and I didn't finish it. Even though I can finish it whenever I want, I can transfer the credits from the classes that I took to another university, and I can always complete the degree if I feel like it, but it just feels like a waste of time and money to get a degree just to get a degree. Like I don't care to have it, at least right now, so that's not what I'm going to pursue. And it's the same kind of thing where like I have not been working. I didn't work on my book last year. Well, okay, I take that back. I did work on it, but I didn't work on it enough. I didn't work on it as much as I wanted to. I didn't complete what I wanted to last year, but I did work on my friendships a lot last year. Really evaluating like who was important to me. I think I was very stressed and overwhelmed with the amount of people, I would say like across my friends and family, but also like people I'm connected to through church, volunteering, people at seminary, people at work. And it was too many people that like really, really overwhelmed me. So in taking an audit of like, who am I going to give my time and energy to and who am I not, like had to cut some people. And it's just one of those things that it's like, you can't bring everybody with you on the journey of life. But if you're never losing anything, then I don't think that you are truly making progress. I think like as you grow, there are people in your life who are not going to grow with you. And there are things in your life that aren't going to grow with you. Like maybe the thing that you lose is a place. Maybe it's an emotion, maybe it's an attitude, but like as you grow, there's gonna be a loss of something, but that doesn't mean that you're not making progress. Like more often it's gonna mean that you are. I didn't have a hard conversation this week, so I'm sharing one from, I think it's 2 weeks old at this point, but hey, I haven't released an episode in like 8 months, so every hard conversation I've had in the last 8 months is new to you guys. Okay, so this is probably going to sound like a really stupid example to some people, but I really hope it helps someone because I've had 8 million conversations about it, so clearly it's still weighing on me. But anyway, over Christmas, like my sister and my mom made this comment that I am like the girl who cried wolf. And so also, I should backtrack. Part of why like the whole situation of when I was like sick and overwhelmed, I also experienced sciatica for the first time in my life, which if you haven't, it is the most excruciating pain that I think exists. And shout out to all the friends who sent me stretches because I am finally free of it. And brief aside, the pain lasted for around about 6 weeks because I did ask all my friends who have had it before how long this was going to torture me. And they were all like, a while. And I'm like, how long is a while? Are we talking 6 months? And I kept Googling it, and Google was like, it could be several weeks or several months. And I'm like, what does that mean? What is several? 4, 8. It was around about 6 weeks for me. But anyway, so because I was dealing with sciatica, I was really struggling with like standing and sitting. It's like there are certain positions that are more comfortable than others. And once you find a comfortable position, you're like afraid to move because sometimes just like going from laying down to sitting up is like excruciating pain, or like standing, if you stand too fast or the wrong way, like just everything hurts. And I didn't want to deal with that. So I was not moving a whole lot, and I was going out of my way to like ask my sister to do things for me. And so there were a lot of things that I learned in this experience. But anyway, because I was asking her to do a lot of things so that I wouldn't have to move, she's like, I can't even tell if you're actually hurting or if you are just trying to get out of helping me cook Christmas dinner. So like, what's the issue here? You're like the girl who cried wolf. And I was like, no, I'm not. And my mom was like, yeah, you definitely are. And I was like, I was very bothered by it. Like I was super, super bothered by it. And I talked to each of them about this individually weeks later because it was still bothering me weeks after Christmas. And so what was interesting is that they both said that they were using the girl who cried wolf as an analogy to me being dramatic, which I personally, I just find really strange because what I know of the story of the boy who cried wolf is the boy lies. Like he continually runs to the village and says like, there's a wolf. And then everybody brings the weapons to come kill the wolf so that he won't eat the town. And there is no wolf. And so the boy lies so many times that when there's actually a wolf, nobody believes him. And so the wolf then eats the boy and the whole town. And this is a cautionary tale that you tell children to teach them not to lie and to warn them against lying. So to me, I am like, calling me the girl who cried wolf is akin to calling me a liar. And I go out of my way to not be a liar. Like I pride myself on being an honest and authentic person. And so I'm sitting there like, why do my sister and my mom think that I lie? And then they were both like, well, we're not calling you a liar. Like we're just saying that you're dramatic. You know, you're a drama queen. And I'm like, okay, but The Boy Who Cried Wolf isn't a story about a boy who's dramatic. Like the story isn't that there's a little wolf cub and the boy says, oh, it's a big scary wolf. And the town is like, oh, no, he's this puppy. Let's play with it. Like, that's not the story. The story is that there was no wolf and he said there is one. Like, that's effectively a lie. And I was like, also, you were saying that you were unsure if I was actually in pain or if I was faking it to get out of helping cook dinner, which supports the belief that you think I am a liar. Because if I was faking being in pain to get out of helping with something, that would also be lying. That's different from being dramatic. Like, being dramatic is like the fact, you know, I do speak in hyperbole. Like I'm very emotional. I'm more emotive than the rest of my family. Like if I stub my toe, I'm more likely to scream than if like my sister or my dad stubs their toe. They're more likely to probably curse internally. And like, you might not even know that they stubbed their toe unless you see it happen. But like, that doesn't mean like, yes, I would say in that sense, like they would probably say that I'm dramatic and I would say I'm more expressive than them, but that doesn't mean that either of us is making up being in pain. So anyway, like my mom and I had this conversation on the phone. It lasted maybe 20 minutes. Like I think we got to the same page by the end of it. But my sister and I don't think we didn't really have the time. We didn't have time to get on the phone. So we were like texting, having this conversation. And it took like 4 days to the point where I was like 4 days of us typing like page long texts to each other. And I don't feel like either of us ever fully understood what the other one was saying. I think we just got to the point where we were like, we have been having this conversation for too many days and neither of us want to do it and we don't really care about it that deeply. But I think like mostly I wanted to understand, like, do you think I am a liar or not? And maybe this is just as simple as we have very different memories of what The Boy Who Cried Wolf is a story about. So like maybe we start there. But then it was like we started there and we were on the same page of what that story was about. And then I talked to my other sister about it and she's like, well, I just think that like they were leaning into the drama of the boy saying like, come quick, there's a wolf. And then there wasn't one. And I am like, okay, but again, he was whatever. It's fine. He was lying, but still, it's just like, it's one of those things that is like, it is so simple, but it really stresses me out because I feel like this happens with my family so often. Like there are so many miscommunications in my family where we define things differently, we remember things differently, we understand things differently, and I feel like 70% of my conversations with my family consists of explaining, of like, no, this is what I meant, this is what I said, you heard me wrong, or I didn't communicate it well, or whatever. And I never have to do that with any of my friends, and it makes me just not want to speak to my family. So I feel like the revelation that came out of that, which I told my sister, was, if we think about the fact that there are 365 days in a year, and we see each other like the week of Thanksgiving, a few days at Christmas, and maybe there's one additional trip that I take to visit you outside of that. So generously, you and I might spend 20 of the 365 days together. But like, we're not a part of each other's day to day. Like we talk every day, but we're not really talking about things. Like our day-to-day conversations consist of like pictures of our food and complaining about work. Whereas like my friends and I are like learning about each other every single day. Like we're having long talks, like so that's why my friends and I have gained that like understanding that I don't have with my family, because I don't talk to them on that level as frequently. Like I'm seeing them a lot less often. And so like we typically, like my family and I have like the long deep talks when we're physically together, which is less often. My friends and I are physically together less often because most of my friends live too far away for me to even get to see ever. So we're on the phone constantly. And so it's kind of just like with my family, there's more of that fear of like, if I tell this person that I hurt my feelings, like I don't know how they're going to react. And it's because I'm not used to telling my family how I feel. Like in the rare occasions that I've tried to share how I feel with my family, their default response is, you're so dramatic. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Like you're making it such a big deal. Oh my gosh, that happened weeks ago. Why are you still talking about it? Where those reactions don't make me feel supported. And so the next time something happens, I don't want to share it with them. Where like my friends are more likely to say, oh my gosh, I did not realize that hurt your feelings. I totally understand. I'm so sorry. And same thing for me. Like I'm not saying that I'm like a victim here. It's the same thing on both ends, because what I realized is that when I was in the kitchen, like my sister was like, you walked to the bathroom, no problem. And then you came and sat on the couch, and then you handed me a plate and asked me to put a snack on it. And I am like, you can cross the room to go to the bathroom, but you suddenly can't turn around and get your own snack. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I did not properly communicate to you that the act of sitting on the toilet and getting up off it really, really hurt. So the fact that I had to cross the room and do that and then cross the room again to get back to my chair took a lot of energy, and I was really in pain. And so I didn't want to get up again to get my snack when you could do it without being in pain. But I didn't communicate that to you. I didn't say that to you. I didn't like wince. I didn't scream, so you had no idea what was going on with my body. And I just expected it to not be a big deal, but I should have said like, I'm really, really hurting and I have to pee. So I can't I have to deal with the pain to do that, but I don't have to deal with the pain to get my snack because you can get it for me. And it's just one of those things where I just have to learn how to communicate with people better. But nobody ended either of these conversations hating each other or in a terrible mood. I think overall they both went not as well as I would have liked them to go, but they went better than I would say they've gone in the past, to the point where I do feel more confident being able to, like, the next time my sister and I have a miscommunication, I'm definitely going to call her and be like, hey, last time we texted about this for 5 days, and that was 5 days of stress and irritation, so let's just knock this out in 20 minutes if we can. So that was a learning from it, but also I definitely feel more confident of, like, bringing something to her, because even though we were both typing so many words and it took so many days, and we weren't fully understanding each other. We definitely both wanted to understand each other. It's like, that was clear, where it's like, we're spending this time on it and we're continuing to go back and forth because we're still not on the same page and we really want to be. And I think that is new. Like, I think in the past, my sister and I have been a lot more like, here's what I think, and either just agree to disagree or walk away, or one of us has to be right. And this time we were really in a place where it's like, I don't think there's a right and wrong here. I don't think anyone's done something wrong, but my feelings were definitely hurt, and I'm just trying to understand why. So I'm just trying to understand what it is that you were trying to communicate with the comment, and then I'm trying to get you to understand, like, what I heard and how I felt about it. I have seen so many movies since I recorded my last episode, obviously. I mean, I watch like 2 movies a week, and I have not recorded this in, I think, 8 months. I honestly am not sure how long it has been. But most recently, I rewatched the Twilight Saga, and then one of my friends and I are trying to make it through all of the Star Wars movies our first time around. You guys, I think, let me see, what Star Wars movie was this? 6 or 7? So what, there's the originals are the 6, and then we've seen, like, there's the original trilogy and then the main trilogy. We've seen 2 past that original 6, and we're watching them in release order, which everyone told us to watch them in release order. You guys give terrible advice. If anyone's going to embark on the Star Wars journey, I fully recommend you watch them in chronological story order, because we are so confused. We have no idea what's happening. I don't understand the appeal of Star Wars. I'm sorry, I don't. I think the writing is terrible. I think the acting is subpar. I have no idea what's going on. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not a fan at all, but I really want to have seen these movies. So we're going to keep trucking through, because at this point we're really close to the end. The Twilight Saga, I want to issue a sincere apology to every person in my life whom I have ever forced to watch the Twilight Saga, because I don't know what changed, but my sister and I watched these last weekend and it was painful. Like, in which these movies were always bad, okay? I remember seeing the original Twilight movie the very first time in the theater. Like, me and my sister went with 2 of our best friends. We went straight from school. We got in line at the movie theater at 3:05. We were 16, 17, 18, and 19th in line. We went to Marcus Theaters. They let us order a pizza and bring it in the back door so that we wouldn't have to get out of line. Like, there was a boy there that had like Bath and Body Works glitter on so that he could sparkle like Edward. Like, people dressed up, because remember, this was back when the midnight premiere came. So literally we got to the theater at 3:05 and the movie started at 12:01. And it was so exciting. And we had t-shirts, and that movie ended. And I looked over at my friend and I was like, was that bad? She was like, did we hate that? And I was like, we cannot possibly, because Twilight was our entire personality. We carried these books everywhere we went. We did every book report on a Twilight book. And in one class, my teacher was like, you cannot do another report on Twilight. So we did New Moon, and then Eclipse, and then Breaking Dawn. And we're like, it wasn't Twilight. It was a different book in the series. Like, the entire school knew that we were massively obsessed with Twilight. So we were like, we have to back this production. They're going to be making these movies for the next 5 or 6 years. They can't be bad. They can't. And so I was like, let's just watch it again. You guys, we went to see Twilight in the theater, paid 5 or 6 times. And I think the third time we were like, what if we just watch it? Like, what if it's a comedy? If we watch it like it's supposed to be funny, then it's kind of good. It's just like we condition our minds like to think that these movies were like watchable, and then it just became a joke. And so then we went to all the midnight premieres and we're like, whatever, Rob and Kristen are just doing Rob and Kristen. Rob and Kristen were the wrong choice for Edward and Bella from day one. Like the second Rob Pattinson was cast, I was like, love him, but he's not Edward Cullen. Like why are we doing this? And then I love Kristen Stewart, love her, wouldn't have picked her for Bella. And it was just the way, like in all their early interviews, they were saying like, we're going to do this super edgy, like indie version of Twilight. And it's like, no, Twilight is a teen romance. It's a vampire thing. Stop. Like, you don't need to make it emo. We don't need the blue tint. Like, whatever. The whole thing, I wish I could have had something to do with the production. I wish I could have talked to the producers, because I would have been like, guys, this is not it. I guess it was it because it still made the billions or whatever it made. But again, I'm so sorry to everyone in my life that I forced to watch these movies, because really and truly, yikes. They are so painful to get through, even loving them ironically. And like watching them as a joke and just laughing at the whole thing, it was still like, oh my gosh, these movies don't even make any sense. And I think that they made more sense when they came out to the readers, because there's a lot of stuff that is not explained in the movies that they just assume that you know because you read the books. So to people who didn't read the books, I imagine that the movies were like more just complete acidine nonsense. They were just like, what is this? But yeah, I did. Yikes. I made the whole Cinema Blend team live tweet all of those movies. And I'm just like, I can't believe, I mean, honestly, in my defense, I can't believe they participated. They must have like really, really supported me as a social media manager, because what a time. That was really something. If you have not seen the Twilight Saga, much like I'm watching Star Wars just to have seen it, I do think you should watch it just to have seen it. It's a cult classic. Those mid-2000s were really a time. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I would love to say that there's going to be a new episode every Wednesday at 6, but you know how this goes. Bye!
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, here me and you, let's keep it real honest.